My name is Evan, and I'm the host of SC&I Career Talks. Today, we're sitting down with Ryan, who is a PR manager from Fanatics, and he is also a SC&I Master of Communication and Media graduate. Thanks again, Ryan, for being here. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to know a little bit about your career journey from college to the professional world.
Yeah, so I got my undergrad at Boston University. I was originally a journalism major, and I thought that was the route I wanted to go down. I had an internship at the Boston Globe, as well as the Bergen Record here in New Jersey. All awesome opportunities. I loved the writing communication side of it, but it really showed me that I wanted to use my kind of communication skills in a more strategic way. And that's when I made the switch over to public relations, which I found kind of satisfied my need to be more creative, more at the behind the scenes of what's going on, helping to tell those stories from a brand perspective. Um, so when I made that switch, I was about halfway through college. I went and set off on a lot of different internships to try to figure out which fields I like, what facets of PR I like, what I don't. I interned for the Red Sox. I interned for the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute up in Boston. I interned for my state senator here in New Jersey. And I also interned for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So everything, planes, trains, automobiles between the two states, and great opportunities that really showed me what I liked, what I didn't like, enjoyed working with the media. So I knew I wanted to do something heavy in the media relations side of things. When I graduated, I received my first full-time job with Edelman on the healthcare team. Incredible opportunity. I learned a lot during my time there. Um, about 8 months in, I made the move over to Fleischman Hillard to work on their sports team. Working in sports is always the ultimate goal of mine. So it was an amazing opportunity. I was working with some incredible clients, EA Sports and Madden and college football video games, were what I spent most of my time on. Worked some Super Bowls, some athlete appearances across the country. Really great opportunity and to work with sports media, but also like sports and culture media. Um, so I was there for just over 3 years. Um, and then this past July, I made the move over to Fanatics, where I am now as a public relations manager. So I work with the Fanatics collectibles team, mainly Tops, for everything that we're doing in the collectibles trading card space and helping to lead the PR efforts around different events, different athlete deal signings, and a lot of different facets of the organization.
As a longtime Madden player myself, I mean, it's so cool that you got to work on these campaigns. And what would you say is maybe your like favorite part of, just being creative, working on campaigns behind like these, huge events and huge games? What's your favorite part of, that creative process?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is honestly just pitching the media and working with them and kind of being at the forefront of deciding which outlets make sense for which stories. One of the things that especially that I'm working on now and then also at my previous job is for a lot of these sports clients, um, like getting covered at the ESPNs of the world is amazing. But a lot of them, it's like, how do we transform our brand to be seen by these more like cultural focused outlets as opposed to just sports, and how do we transcend beyond sports? So whether that's working with the People magazines and on the celebrity side, or like Hype Beast, Complex, Up Rocks, so trying to bring these brands that are known as sporting brands into the culture audience and a cultural world, and finding which storylines line up for these outlets, which athletes do we have, um, that are, have this personal branding that makes them of interest. So just kind of figuring everything out and how to approach these things, is certainly my favorite part.
And would you say it was like a natural sort of transition from like a journalism background to, sports PR, or were there things that you had to, sort of pick up along the way?
I mean, definitely parts of it that were easy to me. I mean, just as a big sports fan, I already had a really good knowledge of the sports media landscape and which reporters were the big ones for which sports and which outlets were meaningful to sporting fans. So I feel like I had that part of it down. Um, But obviously on the back end, a lot of the PR stuff, um, just a lot of logistical stuff, coordinating interviews with athletes, working with their agents and teams. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff is what was more of an adjustment just to learn like those processes, as opposed to just being a journalist and saying, all right, this is what I'm going to speak to so and so because I was working with a PR person as a journalist who already figured all of that out for me. Um,
Definitely. And that brings me into my next question, which is kind of, how do you balance those hard skills and soft skills? You kind of touched a little bit upon some of the, hard skills you do, like working behind the scenes. How do you balance that and also your soft skills to do what you do today?
I'd say right now my job is really two main functions. At the basis, I'm a storyteller. So I think that's one of the most important things that's been with me from journalism to PR. Um, in all of these roles, I'm still trying to just tell stories. And as opposed to as a journalist where I'm telling stories directly to people, now I'm telling stories to journalists for them to tell their stories. Or I'm telling stories to internal people here to try to sell in an idea. So everything that I'm doing is selling in stories and telling stories. And then the other kind of side of it is all relationship building. Um, Certainly something I'm very passionate about. Um, Relationship building with a lot of different people, whether it's athletes in their teams, journalists, obviously working in media relations is a very important one. But then also just internally here, making sure that I'm on good terms and have a solid relationship with the social media team and the legal and just every different aspect of it. So I'd say those are like two kind of things that like ground me on a day-to-day basis.
Do you think there was like a single factor, maybe a particular experience that you had that best prepared you for the role?
Probably interning with the Red Sox back in college. Um, I was interning in their media relations department. It was when they won the World Series in 2018. I was there most nights of the playoffs till 1, 2 a.m. working. And, I'm a huge Red Sox fan and it was work, but I loved it. And I was working with the media who I had grown up reading my whole life, like all the Boston Globe, Boston Herald reporters. Obviously, the players are idols, but like to me, those writers were the people that I spent most of my time reading about or reading their writing. Um, so being in that press box, being in that environment kind of showed me that this was the route I wanted to go down, and continue pursuing this sports PR career path, which is difficult because everyone likes or wants to work in sports. It's certainly a competitive field, but just the ability to work with something that's so natural to me and it's like outside of work, most of what I'm doing is sports related. So it's just really seamless to be able to bring that in and vice versa. And just kind of always have that landscape in my head without it seeming like work.
And you mentioned that competition within sports media, sports PR, and I work with a lot of people, through clubs and organizations on campus. I photograph for my campus newspaper and work closely with the sports desk. And it's a very competitive environment. Lots of people want to write about sports, and as you mentioned, it's so competitive. So how do you kind of get an edge over other people? What advice would you have for people who are just trying to get in?
Yeah, I would say one of the big things, and I tell this to a lot of people, is that my background and knowing I wanted to do sports, I created this really diverse background for my internships and um, my experiences in college that allowed me to not have a cookie cutter sports background, I'd say. Like knowing I want to do sports, it would have been very easy for every internship to have just been sports, 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 which is great, and I would have enjoyed it. Um, but I think that I sought out other internships in other fields made me a more diversified candidate in terms of background or internship experience. Um, I worked in I worked for the government twice. I worked in healthcare twice. I worked at a technology PR firm, and all of these kind of just gave me the ins and outs of other fields, um, to where when I was getting hired for that first full-time job in sports, I was working with um, sports and tech clients, sports and healthcare clients, a lot of things that weren't just sports, but they had some sort of adjacent, other field with them. And because I had this diversified background in my previous internships, I was able to kind of stand out from other candidates. Like, oh, he has healthcare experience and loves sports. He has tech experience and is interested in sports. Um, So I think all of that really helped me to stand out, and has got me to the place I am today.
Yeah, it's definitely super important to have, a diverse, well-rounded background. So that's really cool that you got all these opportunities. It's also important to get these different backgrounds and be able to talk about those experiences as well with other sectors. So what would you say would be the biggest obstacle that you've encountered in your career, and how are you able to overcome that?
I mean, honestly, the biggest obstacle, I guess, was probably graduating undergrad during COVID. Um, I I had this mindset. I did a lot of internships in college, and I had this mindset that when I graduated college, I didn't want to do a post-grad internship. I wanted to get right into the workforce. I wanted to start my career. Um, and then COVID hit, and the job market obviously was in peril. And it forced me to kind of take a step back. It was not, agencies were not hiring in mass, for like entry level during that time. Um, and it really forced me to consider my options, and it kind of widened my view on what the next best step might be. Um, and I did end up taking an internship, and the internship was actually extremely valuable. It was a tech PR internship, and it was my first real agency experience. And I think having that agency experience under my belt helped me in my next two jobs at Edelman and Fleischman Hillard, where I had a better understanding of agency structure, how client teams are structured, etc. Um, so, I mean, I guess the lesson in that is really just to remain flexible. I kind of went in with this closed mindset, which I try not to do, but I was just like, I'm done with internships. Um, but being able to readjust, and the internship definitely propelled me to where I am today. Um, so, I mean, just always trying to keep that open mindset, which I didn't have at the time. And COVID kind of forced me into that. But it's certainly in the long run helped me, with my successes and with successes to come.